Dana Holgorsen just wrapped up a jam-packed press conference with the media, and he had a lot to talk about in regards to the huge offensive line concern, what we do going forward. There is a shakeup coming to that unit on Saturday, what we've been working on this week in practice, what we need to do versus USC in order to win, and so much more. Along with John Butler, he dropped a lot of nuggets about this game. A very interesting comment that was just made by a Nebraska defender. We'll talk about it, along with all of the news from today. The Matt Rhule to Penn State talk continues to heat up, and there has been a twist in the situation. A lot of recruiting rumors, particularly around a 4-star DB who just decommitted from his school. The Huskers have been linked to him. We'll talk about it as well. A very interesting stat around Lincoln Riley and USC that should give Husker fans optimism, and a couple other bits of information as this video progresses. So really quick, this is a jam-packed update. Hey, if you're having a good Tuesday, because I know I am, hit that like button. And also, if you're a diehard Nebraska fan and you're not subscribed, what are you waiting for daily Husker content, for updates just like this? It's no brainer. It takes 2 seconds. Join the family. Hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much. But without further ado, we have a lot to talk about. Want to get things started with Dana Holgorsen's press conference before we get to all of the other news from today. Right off the bat, Dana Holgorsen talked about the offensive line, the concern going forward, because yes, the offensive line, it took a step forward versus Northwestern. They only gave up 1 sack, but Dana said it's still a problem. It's still something that we're continuing to address. We're going to continue to work on it, and we know that's going to be a focal point versus USC. If our offensive line doesn't play well versus the Trojans, we will lose. It's pretty much that simple. But again, he said that our offensive line issue, it isn't unique to us. I think a lot of times Nebraska fans, we sit here and we act like our problems, we're the only school that's dealing with it. Oh, we're the only school that has a bad offensive line. We're the only school, that has a bad defensive line and so on. That's not the case. You look around the Big Ten, the SEC, everybody has struggling trenches at this point in the year. You have to work around it. You have to adjust. Yes, it's not ideal, but Nebraska can still win football games despite having an offensive line that's struggling. We could still win out, but we need all the other pieces around them to step up. And we also need the offensive line continue to progress. And he talked, specifically about the offensive line. He gave a lot of credit to Elijah Judy, and we did the same thing on the channel where, Elijah, he had his best game versus Northwestern. He only gave up 1 pressure, gave up 0 sacks. He was by far his best start at Nebraska, maybe his best start ever going back to Alabama. So again, Elijah, he's getting better and better. I'm hoping that he plays well versus USC because once again, it's a completely different challenge. But, we need Elijah to bring his A game. We can't have any false starts, any sacks given up. I'm okay if Elijah gives up a couple pressures, and that's what he does, but you need to keep it clean. No holding penalties, no false starts, no sacks, and we'll be perfectly fine. But again, Elijah's been playing well. Again, it took him a long time to really adjust to the Nebraska culture going from Alabama to Lincoln, but hopefully he holds it down these final 4 games and is our solidified left tackle starter going into 2026. Dana also praised Turner Corcoran. He kind of hinted at the fact that Turner Corcoran is going to be our starting right tackle versus the Trojans, given Gunnar Gatula is banged up. So, you guys already know how I feel about that. Yeah, Turner played okay versus the Wildcats, but we've seen a lot of Turner Corcoran football, and none of it's that good at all. He's got benched time and time again throughout his career. They moved him from left tackle, right tackle, left guard, right guard. They moved him all over the offensive line, and it feels like nothing really works. I kind of like him best at right guard, so it's unfortunate he's going back to tackle. Anyways, again, I'm hoping Turner Corcoran doesn't sneak it up versus USC because that's the easiest way we can wreck the ball game. But again, the coaching staff has belief in him. In that case, I do too, but you should be noted he will probably start versus the Trojans. Then he had a very interesting comment about the game plan going into USC. He said we're not going to run tempo at all. We're not going to have a fast-paced offense. If anything, it is going to be the exact opposite. We're going to try to drain the clock versus USC. It's nice to have chunk plays. It's nice to have a big receiving touchdown. It's nice to, air it out to Jacory, Barney, Dane, Key. But really, when you're going up against a high-powered offense like what they have down there in LA, you got to control the time possession. Because if you go and score very quickly, you're giving USC more time to go back and respond. And if this becomes a shootout, USC is probably going to win. Okay, we have firepower, don't get me wrong, like Dane Key, Jacory, Barney, right, Dylan Raiola, we have the pieces to keep it competitive in a shootout, but if it's, purely offensive talent, we know that USC is going to win that ball game with not only the talent, but with their coaching staff who's done it before at a very high level. So just expect us to ride Emmett Johnson at this game. The vocal point is going to be run the football because we know that that's really the only weakness of USC's defense. They have a really good pass rush. They have a talented secondary. They can't really stop the run. They got exploited versus Notre Dame in that aspect. It's going to be the same deal versus Nebraska. We got to ride Emmett. He's probably got to have about 30 carries versus the Trojans in order to win. And then last but not least, He talked a little bit about USC, obviously the expectation. He said that defensive line's really tough. We got to get to the quarterback on defense. We, also have to stop them from getting to our quarterback. They're not perfect on defense because they do have flaws. That was seen versus Notre Dame. That was seen versus Michigan. They have an inconsistent secondary. They have a questionable run stopping unit like we just talked about. So we're going to try to exploit both these things. And also should be noted around USC, they have a very tough red zone defense. So you can get in the red zone versus them, but they're going to only force you to kick a field goal. Or they might take the ball away through an interception or force fumble. So when we're inside the 10, Nebraska makes it very clear, hey, we got to score. Okay, you got to score touchdowns in this ball game. Field goals aren't going to do it. You got to score touchdowns. And Dana made sure that we knew that. All right, getting to John Butler's press conference, because I thought, honestly, his was a little bit more interesting than Dana's today, because the thing about John is that, in my opinion, this is a ball game that will define the rest of his career. This game will be decided based on which defense steps up, because we know both offenses that have the firepower. We will win or lose this ball game depending on the defense. Okay, he said it's going to be a huge challenge. Obviously, we got to stop Jaden Nyziah. We need the secondary to show up. I mean, Sear Wright, we talk a lot about Sear Wright in the revenge game. He's going to go up against Mekhi Lemon, who's one of the best receivers in America. I consider him the best receiver in America. Mekhi Lemon's special. He's going to be a first-round pick. Sear Wright, I believe he also could be a first-round pick, if not second-round pick. He needs to prove it versus USC, because if Sear Wright's a liability and Mekhi Lemon's streaking wide open, it's going to be tough, right? And we also need Andrew Marshall. He's been inconsistent these past couple weeks. He's going to be guarding Jacoby Lane. So we need the secondary to step up. Because again, if we can't slow down the passing attack, they're going to do whatever they want against us. As for, stopping the running game, John Butler had a lot to say. He said, you know what, King Miller's as good as any running back in the country, despite him being a third string. The game plan for us is going to be very aggressive. There's going to be a lot of blitzes, a lot of man coverage. We're going to go all in. We're going to go all in versus USC. Okay, we're going to leave nothing back. We're going to put all our chips in the table and say, you know what, we're going to do whatever it takes to win. We're not scared. We're not afraid of failure. And I appreciate that John Butler said that. So again, it's going to be a huge game for John Butler, but just know we got to slow down that passing attack because they got weapons at receiver. The big key of the game is shutting down their rushing attack and making them one-dimensional, also containing the quarterback run game, because that's been a huge problem for Nebraska these past couple of weeks. And the last thing before we get to the news from today, I thought Deshaun Singleton, who usually, the players don't have much to say in their press conferences, Deshaun Singleton had a very interesting statement. He said this will be a battle between two distinct cultures, our culture versus their culture. Okay, we have a culture of being gritty. They have a culture of being pretty. We have a culture of being, of working hard for everything we get. A lot of 3 stars, a lot of 4 stars. They have a culture of, they're from California. A lot of those are 5-star guys who have been handed everything. Okay, this will really define not only John Butler's tenure, like we just talked about, but it will define Matt Rhule's tenure. Okay, we got to win. We got to prove that our culture is superior over, a Lincoln Riley, who, yes, is a very talented head coach, but he struggles against adversity like this. Prove that you've made adjustments throughout your tenure. Prove that our culture is better. Prove that our talent is sufficient, and let's win this ball game. But it's culture versus culture. That's the bottom line. And then they ended with one thing to the fan base, which Matt Rhule said yesterday: if you're going to be there on Saturday, be loud and wear black, because we need it to be a 12th man environment. We need to be like the Colorado game. We need to be like the Michigan game in 2021. If that crowd is not into it, we'll probably lose. Okay, we need them to be a 12th man. We need to make it very hard for the offense to move the football, for USC to move the football. We need our defense to step up, and we're going to help them by being loud. So again, it's going to be a toxic environment. I'm excited to be a part of it. I really am. So really interesting press conference today. All right, let's get to all of the news from these past couple hours, because there's a lot of it. I want to start off with this post I thought was really interesting that ties back to the Penn State and Matt Rhule rumors. Right now, Penn State, they went from being the #1 job in America, top 10 job in the country, to being number 3 behind LSU and Florida. And the reason why this is interesting is because this means that Penn State's going to be incredibly desperate. They might have, a #1 candidate, #2 candidate. They're not going to get that guy anymore, because those candidates would rather go to LSU, because LSU has more resources. LSU is in the SEC. So now that Penn State's 3rd on this list, you could argue they're more desperate now than ever for Matt Rhule. Because again, Matt Rhule's definitely in their top 10. But now more than ever, they're going to go down the list, say, okay, #1's not interested in us, #2's not interested in us. They're going to go all the way down maybe to #7 and say, okay, Matt Rhule. And they're going to do whatever it takes to get Matt Rhule there. Because if they go down any further than Matt Rhule, they're going to have a really bad coach. So if anything, LSU and Florida firing their respective coaches, it makes it even more likely that Penn State, they're going to do whatever it takes to take Matt Rhule, because if they don't get Matt Rhule, they're going to get a significantly worse coach. So I just thought that was interesting. It's funny how things change on college football. But again, it's definitely a developing situation that's not going away anytime soon And again, depending how the season will end, it's becoming more likely that Matt Rhule will leave, or even less likely. Okay, I believe if we win out, Matt Rhule's going to leave, really will. Now, if we lose out, Matt Rhule could also leave because the fan base could want him out. Again, there's just so many variables here. But again, we'll keep you updated with the latest. Then JJ Dunnigan, who, of course, we've talked about on the channel extensively for about a year and a half now. I told you guys I was waiting for him to decommit from Kansas. I thought it wasn't going to happen, and it finally did. He decommitted from Kansas yesterday. Now, if you're not familiar with him, again, he's a top 100 corner in the country. At one point back in January, he was a Nebraska lean. He was a Nebraska favorite. I expected him to commit to the Huskers. He has visited the Huskers 4 times over the past 2 years. So JJ Dunnigan has decommitted from Kansas. Now, what's interesting is he's not visiting Nebraska. He's going to visit Colorado. He's going to visit Miami. I believe he's also going to visit Michigan. So the Huskers may or may not be out of it, but again, should be noted he has a great relationship with the staff, with John Butler, and he's visited us already 4 times. So again, interesting development. Would I say Nebraska's going to land him? Probably not, depending on, I mean, just going off of the information that he's already visiting other schools and he's not going back to the Huskers. So again, I don't know why he's visiting Colorado. I don't know why he's visiting Miami of all schools. You can do whatever you want, but I mean, just know that Nebraska, if you want to come here, you can play right away. You can be paired up with Danny Odom, and that'd be a lethal combo. But JJ Dunnigan officially decommitted from Kansas. At one point was a Nebraska favorite. Then, this is an interesting stat that I just saw. Lincoln Riley has taken USC on a road trip over 2 time zones away 7 times throughout his career right now with USC. And in those 7 ball games where he's went across the coast, they're 0-7. They have not won a road game that is further than 2 time zones away. Nebraska, of course, it is 2 time zones away. And it's a night game environment. And I told you guys the other day that not only do they struggle, again, far away on the other side of the country, but they also struggle in any road game. They're not a team that's battle-tested on the road in hostile environments. They want everything given to them, right? That's the culture over there. Pretty not gritty. I'm just saying. So that's why it's very important in Nebraska that we got to bring our A game from a fan standpoint. Everybody got to wear black. Everybody got to be loud because, again, this is a team that does not win on the road. That should give you optimism. And then a couple other things. Grant Seager, we talked about him a couple days on the channel. Obviously, former Nebraska Cornhusker, transferred to Oklahoma State, entered the portal once again. It should be noted, his agent is Jeremiah Searles, who was a former Nebraska tackle about 10 years ago. So, hey, man, his agent, who's going to be yielding phone calls, was a former Nebraska Cornhusker. He might be in his ear, say, hey, go back to the Huskers. You never know, but it should be noted. Now, do I, in my heart of hearts, do I think Grant Seager comes back? Probably not. I mean, he's honestly going to have a big market. I think that there's going to be some Big Ten schools going after him. Again, some big-time SEC schools, some big-time Big Ten schools. So I don't know if he comes back to the Huskers, but I do think it's a real possibility for sure because he's a hometown kid from Nebraska. He loved the college here. He loved going to the Rake school. So it is a possibility, but definitely an interesting link between him and his agent. And last but not least, wanted to mention this at the end of the video. When's Demitrius Bell coming back? I just want the coaching staff to give us some clarification. Because we've discussed, obviously, yesterday, and we discussed this on Sunday, the receivers just haven't lived up to expectations these past couple weeks. Danke, the stat line's rough. Same deal, Jacory. Nyziah is really the only one playing well. At this point, we need all hands on deck. We need Cortez to get more snaps. Quinn Clark's actually played pretty well. But with Demitrius, he was supposed to come back versus Michigan State, and he re-injured his hamstring. He's kind of made a class a little bit. But anyways, I just want to know whether or not he's come back this season. No, I just want to know, hey, Matt Rhule, is Demitrius coming back, or is he completely off the table? We'll see. But if there's any game for him to come back, it would be versus USC because, once again, we need all hands on deck versus the Trojans. All right, guys, let me know what you're thinking down below. Hey, if you made this far, hit that like button and subscribe. As always, folks, go Matt Rhule, and I'll see you in the next one.